Hello and welcome to another Parallel Project Training podcast. My name's Ruth Phillips and I'm here today with Carmen Campos and Lisa Regan, who are two of Parallel's project senior trainers. We're going to be talking about sustainability linked to the APM PMQ syllabus for exams that are starting in September 2024. Lisa, Carmen, welcome to the podcast. I'm really interested in talking to you today about sustainability because this is one of the new topics that has been included in the PMQ syllabus. What we've been doing on all of the other podcasts is looking at the APM PMQ syllabus and looking at the learning outcomes and then discussing those. The learning objective from sustainability is to understand sustainability as balancing the environmental, social, economic and administrative considerations that will impact a project. And we've got two learning outcomes for this. The first one is understanding why sustainability responsibilities, principles and priorities are considered within a project and the impact that they might have. I'm going to go back to basics and I'm going to ask you, what actually is sustainability? What does that mean in a project management context?
Sustainability in general just refers to the practices and the principles to meeting the needs of the current times without compromising future generations. It's about considering economic, environmental and social factors that sometimes people refer as the triple bottom line, like people, profit and the planet, in order to think about the bigger picture and considering those wider issues. In terms of project management, it's about considering that when planning and delivering the project itself.
Lisa, have you seen sustainability rise up in importance over recent times? What's your feeling about this as a topic?
Yeah, one of the projects that I worked on when I worked over at a university, they were looking at the use of electric cars for organisations and whether it's the responsible thing to do or whether it's even a practical thing to do. So I like what Carmen was saying. For me, it comes back to being responsible.
When we think about our projects, particularly some of the projects within the built environment, we're putting things into the environment that are going to be there, hopefully, for decades, maybe even longer than that. There really is this responsibility for project teams, the organisations that deliver projects, to make sure that sustainability is genuinely included within the project environment. Carmen, we talked about these elements on the project: environment, social and economic. Can you give me a little bit more information about what we have to think about there?
I see sustainability two ways. So one is sustainability of the product and the product life cycle, as you said, make sure that what you deliver is future-proof. But I also see it's important to consider sustainability throughout the project life cycle. Are we using sustainable practice? Are we getting parts from sustainable suppliers? What are the processes that we're doing? You mentioned the example of building. Are we using sustainable construction methods? Construction is one of these industries that accounts for quite a lot of emissions. So when we think about those aspects, for example, environment, you need to think about, does it have any impact into the biodiversity? Are we considering the ecosystem? What is our carbon footprint? When we look at the social aspects, we need to think about working with communities. We need to think about things, even things like human rights or diversity and inclusion could be encompassed in that social aspect. And then finally, in terms of economic, it's about affordability and make sure that the project is still viable. Because if you don't take into account that, it could affect your reputation. It could ultimately hit the project budget if you're not, for example, meeting with a particular environmental legislation. You could have penalties, fines, delay. So I consider that as well as part of the economic. By doing that, you are going to not only deliver sustainable outcomes, but you also going to ensure that the organization and the project itself meets the needs of all the stakeholders, particularly because sustainability is becoming a really crucial aspect of projects. So it's important to think about all of that. Dan, it's a lot of considerations to take into account for a short podcast, isn't it?
It's a big topic, and we'll probably only scratch the surface today, and certainly only look at it from the aspect of what we need to consider from a project management perspective. When you talked about the triple bottom line there, that's a really important thing, because we're seeing now how sustainability and building sustainability into our projects can actually have financial benefits and avoid financial and other penalties. That's the situation where there might be a tipping point where things start to change. Often within business, if there's a financial benefit for things, that's when we start to see real change. People have known that this is the right thing to do for quite some time, but now the profitability, the financial aspect is catching up with that.
That's a very important point, because sometimes that really helps to sell the sustainability agenda. Of course, we all have this ethical and moral responsibility to do that, but sometimes it's quite difficult to sell that to the organization or to a client. So understanding the tangible benefits of embedding sustainability could be quite important, especially to make sure that the sustainability agenda is in your business case to ensure continuous viability of the project.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to ask you, Lisa, about this. When do we need to start considering sustainability in our project?
Well, it should be as early as possible, Ruth, as early as possible in the business case, for sure. In the concept phase, you should have some mention of what are going to be the implications. When you're talking about what the vision is for your project, get it on the table. And because when we think about sustainability, if it's not on the table as early as possible, there are so many other competing agendas, aren't there? So unless it's there day one, it will get forgotten. It will get pushed to one side.
I think you're right. If it's there as a central principle, a central tenet of our vision, then it's difficult for it to be taken out, because we all know it's the right thing to do, and many organisations are aligning their strategic objectives around net zero, sustainability, carbon footprints and carbon neutrality, etc. Once you try putting it in later on in the project, that's where we start to encounter some difficulties. There's standards and best practices that we need to consider here. Carmen, just mention a few of those things that we might need to consider depending on the industry we work in.
So it does depend on the industry, and also depends on the country as well where you're delivering the project. The project manager needs to be aware of that. It's part of the exercise of understanding the context. They may look, for example, at environmental, social and governance criteria, ESG. You may have to, if you are in an organization or you are delivering some products that need to comply with your ISO environmental standards, you may need to keep a close eye to ISO 14001. The key message and the best thing is to do some research and make sure you're aware of the environmental laws, legislation and standards and best practice that your project should comply with.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that I've seen is how important your organisation's sustainability vision is in procurement, because if you're wanting to work with a company that is B Corp certified or has ISO 14001, they want to work with organisations that have similar sustainability visions and strategic drivers. As it's very important both for an individual who's working on a project to make sure that we're considering the sustainability aspects of that project, but also for organisations who are seeking to align themselves with partners, customers, suppliers, that they have similar visions in terms of sustainability.
I fully agree. It's the whole supply chain, isn't it? It's clients coming to us to deliver projects. It's us going to suppliers to try to get some goods or some services. Even recruitment and retention. You want to onboard staff and talent to work as a team members. Especially new generations are now quite aware and conscious about sustainability. So you could onboard really great team members in an organization that has a strong sustainability strategy. It really affects a lot of areas.
Yeah, absolutely. We've recorded another podcast about team management and leadership. And I think that being able to align people around that sustainability vision can actually be very motivating for people. If they see that the project is a source for doing good, that can actually draw people to the project, draw people to the organisation and motivate them towards getting the project work done.
Yeah, that's true. Absolutely.
Let's just have a quick roundup then of why sustainability should be considered in projects. Lisa, do you want to start us off?
So we kind of hinted at it, haven't we? We talked about complying to regulations. There are regulations, there are laws, environmental protection laws, for example, waste management regulations. Complying with them will make sure that you avoid any issues, any legal issues, and potentially fines or prosecutions, fundamentally.
Yeah. Carmen, what do you think is another big benefit of considering sustainability?
I would say resource efficiency. And when I say resources, it means everything, not only people, but also energy, materials. So efficient use of materials, energy efficiency, because that not only have positive impact, but also that could have that financial incentive that sometimes can really help to drive that business case to embed the sustainability requirements on the project. If you think you could ensure that you manage your waste, you have less costs associated to waste disposal. If you have efficient ways to use your energy, that's going to reduce your bill. I'll pick that one for that reason, because it's one that you could use to influence some decisions.
I'm going to go with another one, which is future-proofing solutions. This is tied to benefits of the project and the longevity of those benefits. We talked about building sustainability in at the business case level. And if we can think about the sustainability future-proofing the output of the project, it actually means that it could be a solution that delivers longer term benefits. I'm thinking about a county council in the south of England, and they created a new headquarters. It was a building that in its time was really innovative. They used all of the heat from the server rooms to heat the building. They didn't have any additional heating costs. They had these special panels that shifted in the direction of the sun. When they were building this, it all seemed very space age. I think we might have used the term. But now it's been in operation for 15 years or so. It's kind of normal. That's what all buildings are doing. But for that council, it means that this is a building that can take them on into the future. Sometimes be brave. Think about the future and try to build that into your project.
That's very true. Even linked to the point that Lisa mentioned, regulations may get tighter, the way we see things going. I remember in one of the organizations I work for, where we deliver new products for automation.
Yeah.
We were not ISO 40001, but we keep a very close eye, because we wanted to do the right thing, because whatever we design, we wanted to make sure that if we became, that will be accredited. So it's back to the point of future proving. You're trying to make something that will give you long-term benefits, no matter what change, standards, regulations, just by incorporating that sustainability in the design and maybe your manufacturing processes if you're delivering a new product.
Yeah, there are so many reasons why this is such an important topic and something that we need to think about, as Lisa said, very early stages in our project, because it's not just about what we do on our project. It's not just about regulation, profit. It's about doing the right thing, and it's about the longevity and the benefits that this will drive. Let's have a look now at the second learning outcome that we have. The APM want us to have knowledge about how sustainability measures are monitored and reported on. Carmen, what are some of the measures or metrics that we could use for sustainability assessment?
Once you have defined what is going to be your sustainability outcomes in your business case. When planning the project, you will have some more specific requirements. So as the project goes through, it may be useful to put some matrix just to see how we're doing against those sustainability targets. Some people put that as part of their KPIs, the key performance indicators. It varies between the projects, but typically organizations measure their carbon, their energy, try to record that data and start building some trends to see where the project is using most energy, where we can reduce our carbon footprint. If we cannot do that, can we offset that? Sometimes organizations put as part of their scope, let's say you're doing an infrastructure project, a road or a railway, and you're going to affect some trees or species, you may have to do something to either minimize that or offset it. And that's part of the project scope. So having those targets helps the project to really monitor and measure how well we're doing, and helps building trends as well for future projects. So that could also be part of your lessons learned to try to become better at monitoring and delivering more sustainable outcomes. Waste as well. Sometimes people measure how they're doing in terms of waste, how much waste to the landfill, how much waste is recycled or reused. That's some of the key metrics and measures that you could incorporate. And not forget stakeholder satisfaction, because that is a way as well. We talk about the supply chain, we talk about customers, we talk about some key stakeholders. So you may put that as well as part of your KPIs.
Carmen, you mentioned the importance of stakeholders there. Tell me about how the stakeholders' perception of the project and its sustainability can affect it.
It's very important because ultimately, if the project doesn't deliver and meets the stakeholder needs, it won't be successful, fully stop. And we need to distinguish between internal and external stakeholders. We need to think about internal of the project or organization in terms of they may have already a corporate sustainability strategy. Does this project align with our sustainability vision? External stakeholder, earlier in the podcast, we mentioned suppliers, we mentioned employees working for the organization or for the project. We talk about vendors, suppliers. So ultimately, it builds trust amongst them as well. Also, communities. When we talk about the podcast on stakeholder management, we said it's people that has a role on the project or people that may be affected by. If you are impacted a community or a neighborhood, is one of the triple bottom line, the social responsibility and communities. So their perception about the environmental impact of the project is going to be quite key, because they could even become potential blockers and hinder the progress of the project. Mm-hmm. And the tough one, which is almost like the one that we need to make sure that they're happy with the way things are going, are the regulatory bodies. The ISO 40001 is one of the standards, but there's so many others. So if you need to get a permit, if you need to get a green light by some of the regulatory bodies, the perception about what they're doing is going to be quite critical, because if you don't satisfy their needs and requirements, you have less chances to progress with the project, and you may even, worst case, facing some legal implications or sanctions. A lot of stakeholders have sustainability in their agenda, and we need to make sure we manage all their needs from the social, environmental, and economic point of view.
A lot of this goes back to, particularly for large projects, reputational impact. If the wider community, if wider external stakeholders have an opinion that the project is working towards sustainable goals and objectives, there tends to be a more favourable, supportive feeling from those stakeholders. They seem to have a better perception of the project, which can be very important in getting support as we move through the project.
That's right.
Yeah. And Lisa, you and I have been doing some work with a national transportation rail body, and they've got some important sustainability goals as part and parcel of the projects that they're doing.
Yeah, absolutely, Ruth. And it's becoming more top table discussion, isn't it? Sustainability. I think that's the way to think about it.
Yeah, absolutely. We are thankfully reaching that tipping point. Organisations are putting this at the top of their agenda, and that's actually meeting the needs of the individuals within the organisation that see that this is important as well. We've had a really nice discussion about sustainability there. We've had a look at why sustainability needs to be considered within the project, the benefits that will give us as a project, and we've had a look at how sustainabilities can be monitored and reported upon. The key message is think about this early, and it has untold benefits for the project and also obviously for our wider environment. So Lisa, Carmen, thank you very much. I've enjoyed talking to you about sustainability.
Thanks, Ruth.
Thanks.
Thank you. Fantastic. Bye-bye.